Hello, everyone. Welcome to the News Minute and Newslaundry live, YouTube live, where we're going to be discussing all the election reporting that we've brought to you for the past 1 month. Before we begin, we have some amazing guests with us, obviously. But before we begin that, I just want to stress on the point that this election was covered by Newslaundry and News Minute together. We've covered 5 states. It's completely powered by people, powered by you guys, which means that this is not funded by any sort of government advertising from the center or any of the state governments that we've covered. No corporations, no one at all, completely powered by people. The NLTNM election fund is what helped us travel to all these states, send our reporters there, bring you ground reports, bring you interviews, long form stories. So thank you so much to everyone who supported us. We're still behind our goal. So in case you have liked the stuff we've done and you watched some of the stuff on our YouTube channels, I would urge you to go to newslaundry.com/election fund and help us achieve our goal. We still have one more state to go. So it still matters. But thank you so much for supporting us. I hope you've been catching all our reporting on the News Minute YouTube channel and the Newslaundry YouTube channel. We have with us today Dhanya Rajendran. Hi, Dhanya. Joining us from Bangalore. She's the editor-in-chief at the News Minute.
Hi.
And we have Sudipto Mondal, who is executive editor from the News Minute. Hello, Sudipto.
Hi.
He went to Chhattisgarh, of course, and we're going to be talking a lot about his 2 long-form pieces from there. And Dhanya will tell us about everything that the News Minute has done this past 1 month. And there's a very exciting election happening in Telangana, so we'll obviously talk about that too. Before we do that, I just want to spotlight some of the stuff that we've done at Newslaundry. So we started our election coverage from Mizoram, where Tanishka Sodhi, Newslaundry reporter, went there, reported. We also partnered with East Mojo, which is a fabulous organization based in the Northeast. They covered stories for us there. One of the very interesting facts about Mizoram is that they've only seen 4 women MLAs since their formation in 1972. And at present, there are no women representatives in state assembly. So at a time where we've been talking about women's reservation in parliament, there's no women in Mizoram assembly. This time, 16 women candidates were contesting. So we have reports on that. Why is it that that state hasn't had many women being voted into the assembly or many women contesting elections? Then we reported from Chhattisgarh, where Basant covered the area which is in southern Chhattisgarh, and Sudipto was also there. We then went to Madhya Pradesh, where Pratik brought us a lot of fascinating ground reports. Atul and I were also there. We were doing our another election show. Went to Bhopal, went to Indore, looked at some of the issues there. Of course, that's a state where you've had a government for the past 18 years, one chief minister. So it was very interesting to see what sort of things were people saying about the government and its work. And the biggest challenger there, of course, Congress. Then Rajasthan, of course, which I think for me was the most exciting state because it's really great contest between 2 parties. Rajasthan is a state that always throws out the incumbent. Over the past 25 years, that's what they've been doing. They never vote people back to power, which I think is excellent, so that everyone's on their toes. And of course, then Telangana. I was there for a very short while in Hyderabad. We're going to have a video out from Osmania University with the bureau chief of News Minute, Yunus. So he's going to be there, and we're going to be talking about some of the issues that students have there. It's a gorgeous university, by the way. I had no idea that something so beautiful exists, and it's really it's very sad to see how it's suffers complete neglect from the state government there in terms of the infrastructure. I think it's really a heritage building in that sense, but it's really crumbling. So we have a lot of students spoke to students about what their issues are and the neglect that they face from the authorities there. So do catch all of that. You can catch that on the Newslaundry YouTube channel, like I said, and the News Minute YouTube channel. And we'll get talking about all the exciting elections things we saw, all the patterns I think one thing very interesting, Dhanya, is that I think since Karnataka elections and the Congress's remarkable victory there, you could see some of that impact in these 5 state elections. And I think for me, the most clearly visible sign was that the women voters, the talk of women voters, wooing women voters, making sure that you have specific schemes targeting them. And it makes sense because in many of the elections now, women voters are outnumbering men. But there's a very clear focus that every party seems to have now to woo the women electorate. So I think that was very fascinating. And we'll talk more about that. But I'll come to you. You have a very exciting election happening right now, and Congress seems to be a strong contender in Telangana. Again, you had BRS or TRS, like people in Hyderabad were saying, it's TRS for us only. Been in power for 10 years. So tell us a little about that, and tell us a little about News Minutes coverage, and then we get chatting.
Yeah. So, for all the people joining in, when we started covering elections, initially, like all media organizations, we'll also do constituency watch, which is go to a constituency and say, the road was not built, people are pissed off about this, or people are upset about this, or what people are happy about. But then we realized that, see, we don't have the numbers to do constituency watches, and perhaps that's not what elections should should be about. Either media looks at constituencies or they look at speeches and controversies, and reporting sort of ends there. So we have a sort of system that we follow at the News Minute now when we look at elections. We say in the first phase, we have this thing called TNM Poll Watch, where we look at what happened in the last 4 years. In Telangana, it is 4 years because he went for a election in 2018, and it's 5 years now. But I think the previous election was held earlier than it was supposed to be. So it's 9 years of TRS rule actually, or the BRS rule. So the first set of stories were called TNM Poll Watch, where we looked at what has happened in Telangana in the last few years. What did the TRS promise? What did they deliver? What have the controversies been? Like things like 12% of Muslim reservation. This is the promise which Chandrasekhar Rao made. What happened to that? What is the Dalit Bandhu scheme all about? Did people get the scheme? Or the fact that communal, something that the BRS, I keep confusing BRS, TRS in my head also. I'll stick to BRS. Something the BRS and the AIMIM keep talking about is that there have been no communal riots in Telangana except for a few in Bhainsa and 1 or 2 places. Largely, it has been communal riot free. So that's a good thing that we look at in TNM Poll Watch. The other was the question of privacy. Hyderabad, if a lot of people do not know, is one of the cities in India with the largest number of CCTV cameras. And it's being talked again and again how there is a complete breach of privacy for citizens. Hyderabad police do something called cordon search, where they randomly go into places and they search people. And this is a technique the army uses in Kashmir. So these are all things that we looked at in TNM Poll Watch. In the second round of our reporting, we interview leaders. We also go to constituencies and talk to people. And the third, we look at policies. So we've had very deep delves into the job data. That's one thing which Telangana electorate is really bothered about, the generation or the non-generation of jobs, both in the private and the public sector. So these are stories which we have done, Manisha, on jobs. I think today we are going to have one on agriculture. So we looked at double housing scheme, the 2 BHK scheme, which the government announced, and how certain districts from where the BRS family stands, which is KTR and KCR, those districts have had an advantage compared to other districts. So we had a couple of stories like that. And we also, I think this time we didn't feature too many leaders. We only did a feature of a couple of leaders, but Sitaka, who was standing from Ulaga for the Congress, who at one point of time was touted to be a chief minister candidate, but I don't think so anymore. Yeah, so that's about it.
So people who are tuning in right now, Kartika says, loving the coverage so far, guys. Thank you. Thank you. And what is the topic? Someone's asking. So the topic is, for those of you tuning in right now, we're going to be discussing our election coverage, the News Minutes election coverage, and the Newslaundry's election coverage over the 5 states over the past 1 month. And we can maybe just go state by state and talk about what we thought of, what we saw, what were the ground reports that caught our attention. And I think one thing that a lot of the reporters in our organization are also saying, at least when you look at Rajasthan, Telangana, Madhya Pradesh, this was an interesting election. And I want to know from Sudipto if that's what he thought in Chhattisgarh, and also talk about the 2 reports that he put up. But there wasn't a very strong anti-incumbency against the CM phase, in the sense that there was a fatigue with Shivraj Singh and BJP, that they've been in power for so long and fine, maybe it's time to change. But we didn't see anger against Shivraj Singh. Similarly with Ashok Gehlot, now that state is not nice to incumbents, it usually throws them out. And we'll know what will happen on December 3rd. But again, there wasn't this strong anger against Gehlot. There was this, okay, let's change, theek hai, let's see what, ho gaya. Next term kisi aur ko dete hain. But we didn't have many people say that they were, really upset with what Gehlot is. And what was the scene in Chhattisgarh with Bhupesh Baghel? Did you feel that too, that there wasn't like a strong sense of anti-incumbency there? And also tell us a bit about your first story that you did on that features his father.
Right. No, the father was really actually a trope for me, because, you asked me how strong the anti-incumbency is. I would say it is strong in terms of, the quality of the criticism, let's say. There are these, there's a clutch of parties that is contesting this time, apart from the BJP and the Congress. The Hamar Raj Party, the Gondwana Ganatantra Party, all these parties are contesting over there, and they are definitely part of the discussion there. Now, if you ask me, is that a powerful anti-incumbency way? Well, that will be a stretch, because these are still parties which have far less in terms of resources. So it might not translate into a huge shift this way or that. But I do get a sense that, from a lot of people saying that, even Baghel himself said that around 7-8% of the vote will go to these smaller parties. So I really got that quality criticism, that when in an election, like Dhanya was saying, there is only that much you can do in terms of who's winning, who's losing. You really want to evaluate the performance of the incumbent. And for that, I found these parties and their line very interesting. I used Bhupesh Baghel's father as an almost as a trope, to talk about what Baghel himself is doing, and how his father is actually a Buddhist Ambedkarite anti-caste person, and Bhupesh Baghel is going around doing this Ram Van Gaman Path, and his father goes and sabotages it, pulls down boards that the government has put up, and replaces those boards saying there's going to be a Buddha Vihara over here, and there's going to be a tribal medicine research center. He makes statements against the chief minister. Now, that's of course ammo for the Hindutva forces, but it is also something that all the other regional parties I spoke about earlier, they converge on these points, on the anti-caste question, for example, on the question of redistribution of resources, because for all the social justice, you must be noticing that Baghel is talked about as a social justice champion, right? There's my pieces quote people who talk about how his social justice politics is limited to just reservations, and does not really upset economic or social relations in Chhattisgarh. Also, what I noticed is this very, very high rate of attacks against Christians, which has been enabled by the PESA Act, the act which basically gives autonomy to tribal councils in scheduled areas. So the demand for this kind of legislation was because tribal communities wanted a greater say in mining activities that happened in their vicinity, on their lands. Now that has been diluted in the PESA Act passed by Baghel, wherein he says that the tribal council will be consulted for projects, but their approval, it doesn't say that their approval will be sought. So in a very clever play of words, they made it consultation and not approval. On the other hand, what has happened is these tribal councils are the ones who are like passing decrees against Christians in the name of protecting local culture. And local culture in this case becomes the agenda of the Hindutva forces as well. So this is what basically I was looking at, Hindutva.
What has been the Congress government's reaction, or what have they done when these attacks have happened? Like, what has there been
Nothing.
stance? Because,
Nothing.
when BJP is in power, there's a lot of halla.
Yeah.
It makes it to national news. There's
Yeah.
immediate attack, and Congress leads it.
Yeah. So there is one kind of logic which I suppose can be accepted with a pinch of salt, which is that the BJP and Sangh Parivar organizations become very active when they're out of power. To keep the incumbent on their toes, to keep that Hindutva agenda going. But in Karnataka, for example, I must give credit, and I don't know if Dhanya will back me on this. The Siddaramaiah government has traditionally been okay in terms of controlling militant Hindutva organizations. But Baghel, on the other hand, I found no evidence of him doing anything of that sort. In fact, Christian organizations were complaining that the cops across the board refused to accept complaints. They have to go all the way to the High Court. I found a case, in fact, when we were reporting right in the middle of elections, there was this tribal woman who had gone to the High Court for simply seeking the right to harvest her own standing crop. Why? Because the tribal council had passed a decree that she cannot harvest crops from her own land. These are the kind of things which can be dealt with at the Thana level, but she has to go to the High Court. And the organizations I spoke to were saying that for a small FIR, they have to go to the DC, they have to go to the SP. Yeah.
Wow.
Manisha, if I can just say something, just because Sudipto brought Karnataka, I feel the difference here is that Baghel, I don't know much about Baghel, but from whatever I read, there are politicians in the Congress who believe that the polarization helps them, which is why they allow it to happen. In Karnataka, we actually saw the reverse. When the BJP was in power, we saw much more polarization and attacks on Christians rather than when the Congress was in power. In fact, the number just went up. Their goal was that they wanted the anti-conversion bill to be brought. So the moment the anti-conversion bill was passed, the attack stopped. But in a place like Chhattisgarh, where there is an incumbent government or a Congress government, it makes sense for both, I think, to keep it going. And I just want to quickly say something for all those people watching. Mostly their interest is in who's going to win elections, who's going to lose elections. Something that we cannot predict, and we shouldn't also. Congress people were telling me at least 3 weeks ago. In fact, one very interesting thing is that a lot of South Indians who are behind booth management, poll management, etc. of the Congress in Karnataka are actually in Chhattisgarh, Rajasthan, Madhya Pradesh, etc. They're also in charge of these things. So we do get some information. They were looking at 50-50 in most of the states except Chhattisgarh. But now they feel their prospects have increased, especially in Telangana, and I think even Madhya Pradesh and Rajasthan to an extent. So though there was a lot of positive, reporting in the media about what will happen in Madhya Pradesh, I felt the Congress was being a bit more careful in their internal service and all that. They didn't think that it's such a huge wave or any kind of thing. So what did you feel, Manisha?
So I think that Chhattisgarh I didn't go to, but from what Atul told me, that Congress is comfortable. But the second phase, I think the BJP kind of got its game back, and they've given a good fight in the second phase. Madhya Pradesh, I felt that, like I said, like there's no clear anti-incumbency against Shivraj no one was kind of abusing him or unhappy with him or saying isko hatana hai ya iska chehra nahi chahiye. But there was this thing that, okay, 20 years we've had this government, let's change. And I think also people have started very clearly differentiating between the central elections and the state. And I think there's also a sense in people that, there can be some opposition to BJP as this great, unstoppable election beast by electing a state government that will be more approachable, MLAs who are going to be more approachable. So I think that sense is there. And I think one thing quite fascinating about this election, if you look at the Congress and BJP's campaign, and I'll just zoom out for all the states, not Telangana so much, but for Rajasthan and Madhya Pradesh especially. BJP has been this party traditionally where you have the central part, the central figures, but you also have very strong regional faces. So whenever they go to a regional, a state election, they go with their faces, the state faces. Whereas Congress has been traditionally a party where the center is always kind of, taking over, and you don't have very strong regional faces. I think that changed with Karnataka. And you saw in Rajasthan, Ashok Gehlot's campaign is completely a campaign that is, just him. Even his colors are not traditional INC colors. It's pink. Rahul Gandhi and Sonia Gandhi weren't there in the posters till about 3 weeks ago. Now they're propping up little bit. It's Ashok Gehlot's face, it's his performance, it's his schemes, and the center is really kind of, yeah, ye bhi hai type. Whereas BJP, it was just Modi. You know, whatever you all said and done, Shivraj Singh Chauhan, I think, is still the tallest leader in Madhya Pradesh for the BJP. He works on the ground. He's someone who just really is this ground person who has a connect, who goes, and who still has goodwill. Yet in the posters, it was Modi's face, writ large. And, you saw an Ashok Gehlot almost diminished. And the same thing in Rajasthan, where Vasundhara Raje, who's arguably still BJP's, strongest, tallest leader in Rajasthan, was diminished, and there was Modi's face. So I think there's a flip happening now, where there's more kind of centralization within the BJP. And the Congress, let's see what happens with these elections, because I think if the Congress does manage to come back in Rajasthan, it'll give a huge leg up to regional satraps within the Congress. So I think that was a very interesting feature of this election. And one more thing I want to add, because we were talking about communal politics, Dhanya, I felt that Karnataka was way more polarized on the ground compared to MP and Rajasthan. Hindu-Muslim was not an issue on the ground, even though you had those bulldozer mama image that Shivraj wants to give out. Rajasthan had the murder of the tailor, Kanhaiya. So the PM also brought it up, ki Sartan se juda hua tha, and vote for his justice. Even though we spoke to the family of the tailor and they said that we don't want this to be politicized, we just want quick action. I think maybe because with the BJP's defeat in Karnataka, and because the focus was so much on welfare, the BJP is having to respond on welfare in these states. So the conversation was about what can you give the voters in terms of welfare schemes, in terms of education, in terms of cash benefits, gas prices. Conversation was just that. There was really no Hindu-Muslim that we saw.
I think Karnataka was a situation which the BJP completely misread, and Basavaraj Bommai, as Chief Minister, allowed it to happen. For example, when B.S. Yediyurappa was the Chief Minister, Sudipto has written, I think, one long copy about how Yediyurappa should now leave the BJP and start something on his own. This we published after the election, actually. The interesting is Bommai allowed it to happen. In that short period that he was a Chief Minister, he allowed all these forces to just become very powerful. Those are communal forces in the BJP and the people outside, which is your VHP or the Bajrang Dal, etc. And from that mistake, definitely the BJP seems to have learned, but not as much in Telangana. See, they removed Bandi Sanjay as the BJP chief in Telangana, and they brought in Kishan Reddy, who was supposed to be not so communal, but in the end of it, towards the end, we have seen Yogi and Amit Shah and all coming back and talking about changing the name of Hyderabad, etc. Manisha, there's one question which has come. I would like to know about Kaleshwaram project more. KTR was saying that the issue is overblown, but the images show sinking, which is pretty bad. Is it really as bad as they pointed out in the report? This is a question from Vishnu. Yeah. I don't know why, but my son is having a coughing fit just outside my room. So that's why I was looking. Yeah.
He can't help
so
it,
Vishnu.
I don't know why. Poor guy.
Yeah. So Vishnu, see, basically the controversy in Kaleshwaram was that two barrages, which is in the Jaishankar Bhuppalpalli district, it's called Medigada and Annaram barrages. There were leaks in those barrages. Now, my colleagues Anjana and Bhavani actually went to the district, looked at people who live around the barrages, and they realized that safety is not a huge topic of concern in the election, even in the districts where these people live. Now, like, for example, you look at the Mulla Periyar Dam issue in Kerala. It's been going on for decades now. People have been speaking about its safety, but it's not like these big structures can erode so fast. So yes, there has been a report by the dam authority saying that the structure is questionable, but the PRS is saying that we built this whole lift irrigation project with permission from the union government. They have looked at this whole design, so it can't be faulty. So I think it'll be wrong for us to say that there is a huge safety concern as of now. Let more studies happen on it. Let those experts come up and say what is wrong with the lift irrigation project. But on the ground, Kaleshwaram is doing two things. One is that, yes, there is some goodwill amongst the farmers, etc., because there is water supply, continuous water supply. That is one. The damage it is doing is that in the places like this district where the barrages are there, people are not happy because first thing, their land was taken away. There's a lot of land acquisition done for this lift irrigation project. People are unhappy with that. A lot of people have not got compensation. The biggest damage, but I feel what Kaleshwaram has done for BRS is the narrative, is the perspective that the family has made a lot of money. A project which is for 30,000 crores now reaches almost 85,000. Actually, it's only 85,000. The 1 lakh crore seems to be an invention of the other parties. But when we look through the government documents, we saw that it has been increased to 80,000. Now, the 80,000 increase is for, I think, from 2 TMC feet of water to 3 TMC and 1 to 2 in 2 different places. That's how the project was envisaged, and the project was increased. So everybody's asking, why did the project go from 30,000 crores to 85,000 crores? Who's making money? That conversation definitely is doing damage to the BRS. This whole narrative that the family is corrupt. Look at their wealth. Look at their wealth increasing. Different many houses, helicopters, farmhouse. That conversation is definitely there throughout Telangana. There is 100% a feeling of anger, anti-incumbency amongst a lot of people. But like I was telling Manisha earlier in the day, people would tell us that they are upset with KCR or they're upset with the family, but they were not really saying who they will vote for, as in will they then choose the Congress. They were saying they were unhappy. Now, as a reporter who's covered many elections, two things stand out for me. One is that people have made up their minds. They don't want to tell us who they're going to vote for, which could very well be for the Congress or the BJP, the Congress more likely. Or the second is that despite all this, the vote is not for the Congress. The vote is against the BRS. I don't know, that sounds complicated. They're not actually voting because they want the Congress to come. They just don't want the BRS to come back. I think there's a lot of vote like that in Telangana now.
I think we have some questions, so we'll take them. Those of you who are joining us right now, we're discussing election reportage by Newslaundry and News Minute. You can check out all our reporting on our YouTube channels and our websites, and you can ask us questions about what we saw on the ground and what our opinions are, and we'll try and answer them. Aditya says, why is AAP out of race, as both of them they don't have any big... He's basically saying Congress and BJP, there's no ideological difference. BJP is hard Hindutva, Congress is soft Hindutva. Would you agree, Sudipto, as someone who touched on a little bit of that in Chhattisgarh? Not AAP, because AAP is just right now restricted to Delhi and Congress in Punjab. And I think AAP will also, its natural rise is aligned to a decline of Congress in any state, which is not there in any of these states. Congress has a strong cadre. But would you agree with this hard Hindutva, Congress soft Hindutva, and there's no ideological difference? Or would you see a difference?
Okay.
Dhanya, should I speak my mind on this?
You can speak your mind, but just let's keep in mind that the Congress behaves very differently in every state. They don't behave the same in all the states. So what he's going to say is about Chhattisgarh, yes.
I think the Congress is the original Hindu party. Okay, and we have to go back into the history of the party. Its its positions in the lead up to the country's independence, its role in the constitution making, its the positions it has taken in the Constituent Assembly. All of this point to the fact that this is actually the original Hindu party, and it might not be Hindutva in the sense that we understand it in terms of it doesn't have an affiliate like Vishwa Hindu Parishad or the Bajrang Dal or whatever, but in a more insidious and in a more effective way, it has contributed to India becoming a Hindu country, and not at the expense of the Muslims or the Christians or other religious minorities, but definitely at the expense of lowered caste communities who are actually not Hindu. And this, I think, would be a good thing to say when I speak about Chhattisgarh, right, where you have an indigenous population, which is SC, ST, OBC, whose spiritual, totemic, their entire cultural system is actually not Hindu. It's not at all Vedic, and in that you really get to see how before in Madhya Pradesh and then when it became Chhattisgarh, traditionally for the last 70, 80 years, how this process of Hinduization has happened. And Hindutva comes as a little bit of a cherry on top in that project, but the foundation really, overlaying tribal culture with Hindu culture, overlaying Dalit culture with Hindu culture. In that, I think the Congress has played a role. I mean, not just in Chhattisgarh, but I think that's been their role in all over India.
When you were speaking to Christian groups in Chhattisgarh, was there a sense of despondency in the sense of who they should vote for? Because clearly, I mean, with the BJP, there's a very clear,
No, I saw the despondency in every intellectual from the marginalized communities. Now, I do understand that the masses can be swayed with a lot of things, with sentiments and with inducements, let's say. But I found a hell of a lot of frustration among the SC, ST, OBC intellectuals and over there, as well as the Christian thing. So I'm just trying to once again drive home the point that Hindutva is not, or Hindutva may be something that threatens minorities directly, but the Hindu cultural project threatens the other lower caste communities and their cultural autonomy. And that's a far more scary thing, and that enables the Hindutva project as well. And I don't think that because this entire the reason I keep saying this is because there's a whole obsession with Modi, and as though he is this the reason that India is in this condition, and we don't take into account other parties and how they play another kind of Hindu politics, and we call it soft Hindu. I don't understand what the soft Hindu is. There's nothing soft about Vedic Hinduism. There's nothing soft about it.
As you can imagine, what the conversations in office must be around this whole topic.
I'm like second thinking, third thinking what I'm saying, because I don't want to like have my one dart on my face tomorrow. But yeah, I don't. I really feel that this focus on Hindutva, Modi, Sangh Parivar, all that takes attention away from the fact that the replacement is sinister as well.
No, but I completely disagree. Anyways,
you can quickly make your point of disagreement, and I'll go to questions on Rajasthan.
Also, can I make also one last point about social justice? So this guy basically, he talks about himself. He's projected himself as this farmer.
By this guy, you
mean?
Bhupesh Baghel, you see him.
No, I don't disagree with the rest of what Sudipto said. Just the last point of what he said, that what is more dangerous, because we can't look at the whole, the BJP Hindutva project is just about religion. There's also a lot of constitutional, there are lots of institutions which are being eroded also. So it's not just one thing, right? There are so many things happening around us. So it's not just about the kind of disturbance caused by groups or how the culture is being changed or appropriated. There is a lot more to look at. There are many, many layers about how institutions are being impacted.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
and also this last point, I'm sorry if you'll allow me. When we talk about Congress versus BJP, right? In a place like Chhattisgarh, in any state, for example, you talk about how can the social structure be changed, and in a place like Chhattisgarh, close to say 80% of your economy is dependent on mining, on coal, on iron ore, your natural resources, and 80% of your population is dependent on farming. So 80% of your money is coming from there, and 80% of your people are employed in an unprofitable business. Now you have done nothing to rationalize the ownership of that big chunk of your economy. It continues to be in the hands of a very minuscule, maybe you can fill all of them in one room. That's how many people control 80% of Chhattisgarh's economy. And they also happen to be Brahmin, Baniya, Marwadi, right? And this is not social justice, and this is not progressive politics. This is very dangerous politics. And this is why I feel that these kind of non-BJP parties have to be really held to account for this, because otherwise, by our criticism of the BJP, we lose sight sometimes of what these people are actually. That the structure doesn't change. The BJP comes, Congress comes, but this continues to be the engine which runs both the parties. This mining money, this industrial lobby.
Okay, so we're going to take two questions on Rajasthan. So I know safety was, and Manish Trek asks, I know safety was an issue that came up at several places during your Rajasthan coverage. Did you actually feel the state unsafe? So I don't think it'd be fair for me to judge the state whether it's safe or unsafe, because I'm traveling in a very privileged way with a crew in a cab. It's nothing compared to, say, what a college girl has to go through when she has to take a bus from her house to the college. And we heard that a lot of women students would actually skip their classes and leave and take the 2 o'clock bus, so they're back home by 4. and make sure that they're not, out in the evening. So there's definitely an issue with safety. And I think with the numbers, I think there's one very alarming figure, not just women, but even when it comes to atrocities against Dalits. Mook Nayak has done a very spectacular piece, and you can read it on Newslaundry and News Minute. The data is just startling that the rise in cases from 2017 to 2023 against SC/STs, there's been an average, it's at an average rate of 22%, increased at an average rate of 22% from 2018 to 22. Now, sometimes the rise can be misleading because it can also mean a good thing that, marginalized communities feel empowered enough to go and file an FIR. But what is telling in Rajasthan's case is that the conviction rate has also decreased to 22% during Gehlot's time, and it was 27.49 before that. We met a number of students, and especially young Dalit students from Meghwal community, who were furious with the Gehlot government. They clearly viewed his government as anti-Dalit. They felt that he's not taken strong enough actions when it comes to taking a clear stance, putting a clear message out when it comes to atrocities against Dalits. So I think that also is an issue. And I mean, some people also said that to us now. I mean, anecdotally, I'm just telling you that Vasundhara's time was better for us, that we feel more oppressed now. So the numbers, I think, are definitely startling when it comes to Rajasthan's case. And I think you should look at the conviction rate, because that is what tells you that something's going wrong here. When it comes to women's safety, I think, look, every state, I don't think there's any state that doesn't have this issue. I mean, even in Hyderabad, or even when you're traveling in Madhya Pradesh, women are talking about still the most basic of issues like toilets, just lack of safety because of lack of toilets that are clean, hygienic, that they can use, because of which they either have to travel to certain places, or because of which, a lot of the girl students just skip classes. So those issues continue. The problem maybe is also if we continue to look at this through elections, because then nothing comes out of it. Each party just uses it in the way they want to. But I think women's issues definitely something important, and you saw it in BJP posters also. A lot of BJP really tried to kind of use this also, where they've said this whole thing: ki, vote for us, you'll be safer, women will be safer. And of course, the UP model is touted quite a bit everywhere, wherever Yogi goes. That it's become one of the big talking points in UP was that it's become safer in the sense that you can now file an FIR. Earlier, you couldn't file an FIR. Now, there was some truth to it, but some of it was also marketing. But yeah, I think definitely both these issues were quite at play in Rajasthan. Dhanya, okay, from your conversation with people, how much of a factor, I think Dhanya can take this because it's on, no, that's you only. Dhanya, are you sending messages here? Wait.
No, that's a question.
Oh, that's a question. Oh, I thought you were asking a question. Prateek says, from your conversation with people, how much of a factor, if at all, are digital rights issues? Did people often ever bring these up organically? Dhanya already mentioned privacy in Telangana. I didn't find anything. One thing I want to ask Dhanya, and maybe Sudipto can also take this. I was startled when I was in Hyderabad, listening to stories from your colleagues and other people on how despotic this government has been in terms of clamping down on protests. I think we are completely ignorant in Delhi when it comes to, opposition leaders put under house arrest in Telangana. Any sort of protest being clamped down before it even begins. A famous Dharna Chowk, which is supposed to be where people go and protest, clamped down there. And this in a state which was born out of massive protests and people's movement. So it's completely taken a U-turn, and people were very pissed. But I was wondering how much of that is an electoral issue for people.
Okay, so just take Prateek's question. Prateek, in fact, heads Internet Freedom Foundation. Prateek, sadly, I don't think privacy is a matter in places other than the city. In the city itself, in fact, organically, in one of the conversations we had, 2 students took it up. I was very surprised. We had this chat with students at this Lama Khan cafe, which we had telecast a few days ago. Me and my colleague Pooja Prasanna had, in which 2 students brought up the issue of privacy, saying that look at the number of cameras, look at things happening. But I have noticed that the Hyderabad police, we can't say this for entire Telangana, but the Hyderabad police have been notorious in the last 4-5 years. You have thousands of cameras in that city. You have this, what I said in the beginning of the session itself, this whole cordon search which they do. In fact, I think 2 or 3 weeks ago, we reported about this restaurant in Old City where the police just go and they body search people who are eating in the restaurant. Mainly Muslims, of course, and not well-to-do. And they're saying, "Oh, we got some information that somebody has got drugs or ganja or whatever." So we decide to. Can you imagine police coming in a upmarket, some Delhi or Mumbai restaurant or Bangalore or Hyderabad restaurant, just simply searching people, thinking that somebody has weed on them. So this cordon search goes on many of the poorer communities in Hyderabad. They do it all the time, but despite that, I find the anger is quite less in that city. People should be more concerned about this, but perhaps I feel it's really a lack of education about digital rights, about privacy and rights. If once people have it, of course, they will question. But as of now, I feel it's quite dismal. People are not talking about it. And to what Manisha asked, the clamp down in Telangana, KCR is one of the first chief ministers, I think, who actually like banned 2 television channels for weeks. I remember we were one of the few people writing about it every week, and we would get abuse from others saying that why are you writing about it? These channels also run horrible stories. Now, nobody's saying that these channels are, your Hindi word dhoot ka dula, but the fact is that he has had a tendency right from the beginning of clamping down on the media, on protesters, like you said, the Dharna Chowk, so many protests. Osmania University, which was supposed to be the place where all the protests started in Telangana. In fact, even for the movement of Telangana, there now nobody can hold protests. We can see what is happening in so many of the universities. In fact, we have put out a fund today saying, please raise money for legal expenses, because we are facing 3 cases in Telangana, including 1 criminal defamation from a Telangana bureaucrat for an investigation we did. We have 2 civil defamations and 1 criminal defamation for the same case. And who do we turn to for help? Because the government has been clamping down quite a bit. There was a specific case of this guy called Teenmar Ballana. He was a BJP supporter. He was a journalist who became a BJP supporter. Now, whatever party he supports, he was put in jail for many months. So when he gets bail in one case and comes out, they will arrest him for a different FIR. And I think he had some 30, 35 FIRs against him. So they happily kept him in jail for quite a few months. Yeah, but I remember specifically, Manisha, we were looking for stories for, I think Al Jazeera or one of the other channels had come, and you were doing some project with them on clamp down, which is when I realized that despite all this, Telangana is not as bad as Uttar Pradesh. When we went through the numbers of how media was being clamped down upon, we're only these couple of examples.
Okay, so
Telangana police. Just before just a quick thing about police in the Telugu lands. There is a history of police atrocities in that land. Particularly in Telangana, also definitely in Andhra. We are looking at a timeline starting from the rule of the Nizam. Where the police and the police force over there has a very atrocious culture, and it has many massacres on its hands. Then, of course, the armed movements and how the police clamped down on them. The formation of the Greyhounds. The Greyhounds were one of the most notorious cop forces in India at that time. And so police excess is very much part of the culture of the forces in those two Telugu states, as a result of how they were weaponized, to contain radical movements and all of that. But the sense I get from people when I speak to them about police atrocities in those places is that the police actually is not completely in the control of the political establishment in those 2 states. I don't know I haven't been to Andhra in a few years, so I don't know what's happening there. But definitely Telangana have been going up and down quite often since 2016, since that Rohit Vemula incident, right? And even in that case, there was a lathi charge. The police had committed some huge atrocities on the students at that time. And the sense we were getting is that, and imagine the BRS is definitely in power, but the AIMIM is also a constituent, in a sense, a kind of an outside supporter of that government. And they just couldn't control the police. And I remember when the students were arrested, OAC came to meet them with a basket of food and fruits and all that, saying, hum aapke saath hain. And the students said, kya saath hain? Aapke chief minister ko bolo. And he said, no, police doesn't listen, to the CM over here. It answers to its own. So I don't know. This is one thing I wanted to say by way of context to tell you about Telugu land cops.
Did you see Karnataka's trend of voter ID leaks manipulation in any of these states, like the story TNM did during Karnataka elections? Anything in Telangana?
We
No,
really looked
not
for
in
it.
the.
I'm pretty sure it's there also. I mean, not the voter ID leaks, but in Telangana, around I think 22 lakh names were deleted. Telangana has a huge problem of bogus votes, wherein one person has like 3 different votes. We couldn't do much about it because it was very scattered, and we did go to a couple of constituencies to check. But we couldn't. But I think there is a story for 2024 because it's just not about the election, right? That's something we have kept in mind, and hopefully by the general elections we'll be able to see. But Telangana is one state where massive number of vote deletions happen. The EC insists that it's because there is bogus voting and duplication, but we have to go and find out what it is about.
Given the fact that no government has repeated itself in Rajasthan for the past 30 years, which mandate would be more reinvigorating for Congress workers across the country, Telangana or Rajasthan? That's Sonak Roy. I think both the mandates will be reinvigorating for different sections. Telangana, if that happens, would be a complete victory of the Congress. And I think there you don't have a chief ministerial candidate, right? It's mostly the central leadership that's. So it's really the Congress's victory. Rajasthan would be Ashok Gehlot's victory. And I think that would set off very interesting dynamics within the Congress. If that happens, we don't know if that will or not, and we will not predict anything. Okay, guys. There was one question that was for. Yeah.
Somebody asked about safety. I saw a college girl in Rajasthan raising the toilet issue in one of your shows. Is it an important issue in Rajasthan?
It is. I think for women, I mean, it's so sad, yeah. When you meet young girls and they're still complaining about lack of toilets and missing classes and not, going just because there are no clean toilets. It's infuriating. But again, it's also tied to safety, the sense of safety. So lack of toilets mean women would have to go out or look for places, and it's not always safe and convenient to do that. So that plays on their mind. One person's also asked the rural-urban divide in Rajasthan in terms of issues. Look, Rajasthan with rural, the number one issue is water. There's water scarcity and pollution because there's a lot of industry there, textile industries, and often the wastage just goes into the river. So farmers raise that issue a lot. When you talk about young people, the urban issue is always employment. And I think one thing which we should probably, Newsminute and Newslaundry should do a joint investigation on this. My God, there's not a single election I have covered where young people are not complaining about exam leaks. I think it's the biggest mafia in this country running right now. 15 paper leaks in Rajasthan. Papers got to 15 lakhs.
It's a huge issue in Telangana. The young people are really angry. Just quickly, before we go to this, am I audible? Yeah. Before we go, for everybody joining in, we are almost coming to the end of the election coverage. And as Manisha said at the beginning, this was possible only because hundreds of TNM and Newslaundry readers actually contributed. But the fund is still open as the elections results are only on December 3rd. So if possible, do send those links to your friends, your relatives. Tell them if you enjoyed the coverage and do contribute. Quickly, yes. Manisha, about exams and leak, it's a huge point of anger in Telangana also. In fact, I asked KTR about it, and that's the only thing where he admitted their mistake. He said, I wish we had handled that entire issue better. Everything else he was brushing off. But that's one thing he actually admitted, that they wish they had done something about it. The Public Service Commission leaks. And the other thing I feel the talk will start now, in Telangana at least, is the kind of money which is flowing into elections. I have always insisted that Indian journalists, including all of us, have really not cracked that story about money and elections. I feel like none of us have done enough reporting to show the kind of money which flows. But tomorrow we hope to put out a story on how many of the candidates we spoke to said that they spend anything between 20 to 40 crores per constituency. First, this absolute joke of the election commission saying 40 lakhs. I think is the worst joke played in this country, where the election commission says only 40 lakhs can be spent by a candidate. Everybody is spending crores. One candidate told me that he spends only 15 crores. His assistant said, no, it's around 20. So I'm pretty sure it's around 25.
And where is what that money is spent on?
Exactly. The point is, I would assume that the money is largely spent on bribing voters. So they said no, a large amount, which is around 70 to 75%, is spent on the cadre, which is if you're a Congress candidate or BRS candidate, you spend, which is something we heard in Karnataka also. Most of the money is spent to make sure cadres come for your rallies, to ensure large crowds are there, right? You see all those large crowds in those aerial shots and everything. All your booth managers, your polling agents, people who go to villages, your volunteers, every day people have to be paid 2,500, 3,000 rupees, then their fuel bata, their food. So the large chunk of money actually goes for paying their own people. How is the payment made? That's also a very interesting thing. It's through kirana shops. They have people, like every village, they will have 4 or 5 people who will have that large chunk of money that the party gives or the candidate gives. And then they just transfer this money either through Google Pay or they give cash in some instances. In fact, we had a story, my colleague Bala had done it. It was on social media. BRS has got 250 social media influencers, and they're paying each of these people through a creative agency. They have hired an agency who in turn hires these social media influencers. Congress tried. They could not get an agency. That's the only reason why they don't have social media
In
influencers.
fact, I followed some of them on Instagram. Some of them are very popular. They've got some
Yeah,
really
they're
popular people.
actors, they're all
Yeah.
kinds of people. They're actors, they're influencers. So I asked the party people, how do you get away with the spending? Because 40 lakhs is what a candidate can spend, right? So social media influencers do not take the candidate's name. They will not even take the party's name sometimes directly. They will just praise the government's policies. So the party pays them. Now, the election commission rules have a cap for spending only for the candidates, not for the party. So the party can spend how much they want, and they're spending on social media influencers. So Election Commission of India is the most redundant organization when it comes to elections, because they have no freaking clue, or they do not want to have a clue as to how elections are happening on the ground, the kind of money, and how their stupid rule only talks about candidates and not parties. I think we need to speak a lot more about how elections are so badly managed by the Election Commission of India. It just angers me to even speak about this.
Please catch that story on the News Minute tomorrow. It's going to be out. Okay, Cyril says, talking about industries and industrialists, how much money has gone to the political parties in this election cycle via electoral bonds? I think, has that come out yet? I think that usually comes out after elections, no? Usually. The money through electoral bonds gone to parties.
So the electoral bonds, I think the 24th, see, the electoral bonds happened by lots, right? So I think the 24th lot or something happened recently. I'll tell you, the SBI Bank of Hyderabad. In fact, my colleague Anna Isaac had done that story. 377 crores of electoral bonds were sold from the Hyderabad SBI. This was during the late October 4th and October 30th. This phase 28, not phase 14. I'm going to put that in the comments so that somebody can put that link. So Hyderabad SBI saw the largest amount of electoral bonds. The Chhattisgarh, Madhya Pradesh, Rajasthan banks did not see as many. So you can imagine the kind of money which is being rolled in this election. And remember, electoral bonds are still a cleaner way. We are talking about black money, like proper black money.
But which party has gotten that data isn't out yet. Usually, I think the one that had come out last, it was almost more than 95%. I mean, almost close to 90 was BJP.
I
but
don't
the
think that
recent one-
is there yet.
But for this elections, that data is not out yet.
No. Yeah, it's only that it is from Hyderabad.
Yeah, I'm just checking.
Yeah, so the RTI revealed that I think Kolkata came next. Hyderabad was the first. The breakup of the parties are not there yet.
Yeah,
but of course, from 2016 onwards, 9,188 crores have been donated through electoral bonds. And the BJP has been the biggest beneficiary and got 5,272 crores.
Mostly, yes. Okay, so we're going to wrap in 5 minutes. I think we need to stress on the fact that we'd really like to thank everyone who supported our election coverage. It's allowed us to travel across these states. Sudipto went to Chhattisgarh. You had Prajwal, who went to Madhya Pradesh. Our reporter Tanishka went to Mizoram. We had Pratik in Madhya Pradesh. We had Shiv Narayan Rajpurohit in Rajasthan. And Atul and I were traveling across states for our show. all this was possible because you guys supported us. I hope it has been informative and useful. Like we said in the beginning, the purpose of our election coverage is not to tell you who's winning, kiski hawa chal rahi hai, kiska mahal chal raha hai. It's really a great chance to talk to people, look at what has happened over the past 5 years, 4 years of the incumbent. What are the issues that people are facing? What are the big talking points? And hopefully bring you some clarity on what people are thinking. I hope we've been able to achieve that with our election coverage. Please do log on to newslaundry.com/election fund. You can top it up. We're still behind our goal. There it is on your screen, TNM election fund. You can choose an amount you like. 501 is the cheapest slab. So please do support us if you've liked what we have done so far. Dhanya and Sudipto, last words to you guys.
Last words. I had fun covering the elections. Of course, it was not as polarized as Karnataka was. So there's less stuff to do. But I found that people in Telangana are very issue-based. Like, I'm so sorry. This is my pet feeding time. Everybody's getting angry. So, yeah, Telangana saw a lot of people talking about issues, which is unemployment. People were talking about paper leaks. In fact, people would actually tell us that, look at employment. The government said they will give money, but the government said they will give employment, but it is all police employment which was open. So in that way, people were really cognizant of the issues around them. Unemployment, I thought, was a huge issue in Telangana. Therefore, I like covering the elections because when people know what are the issues around them, and they're not simply talking about leaders or charisma, etc., that makes that electorate intelligent. Now, will money eventually impact the elections? We do not know. There is a lot of talk that Telangana elections, we will see a lot of money being rolled after tomorrow. Not tomorrow, after tomorrow.
Quickly, I just want to add one thing. We didn't take this one. It's a good way to, maybe I can throw that question to you guys also. Do you think Congress has gained control over setting the narrative in 5 state elections to development welfare from BJP's communal and Hindutva boasting? That is Bhavitharan Sridhar, TNM channel. From the TNM channel, you have this question. So I just want to I'll just quickly give my response and then Dhanya and Sudipto, because you were also talking about issues being central. I think there's a big misconception that people are just voting for BJP for Hindutva. That is not how you come to power. Yes, the core vote, or the people who go to the rally, or the people who are going to canvass, or the people who are going to be invigorated, Hindutva may be a big issue for them. But there are multiple things that the BJP offers. Welfare schemes, effective implementation of welfare schemes is something that works in their favor. You hear that repeatedly in every election. Nationalism, in sense, and especially I think since the G20, we've heard a lot of people talking about the sense that, India is doing well at the global stage. The country is going in the right direction. So that kind of sentiment that works for the BJP. So not everyone's voting for Hindutva, but what may be the truth is that not everyone's bothered with the communal rhetoric. So those are two different things. But I think it'll be a misreading to read results and think that Hindutva is
yeah, Sudipto actually has a point about Hindutva and the BJP always trying to do other things, that Hindutva actually doesn't make people vote. Right, Sudipto?
Hey, also Dhanya, your internet is a bit phasey, so you need to now you're stuck a bit.
Can you just repeat what you said, Dhanya? Sorry, I lost you there. What did you say? Your voice just got...
Can you hear me now? No, it's just about how we have this conversation that Hindutva is not the thing that works for the BJP. Sudipto always says that if Hindutva works for the BJP, then they don't need to do anything else, right? They just can just bank on Hindutva. So it's always not about Hindutva. Like in Telangana, for example, Prime Minister Modi coming with the Madiga leader. They do a lot of social engineering. They also have welfare schemes, though they'll make fun of them saying Revadis, and in the Supreme Court, the union government takes a stand against what they call as freebies or Revadi. When it comes to elections and promises, the BJP does almost the same as the other parties, right? Including direct cash transfers.
Yeah,
Hindutva is not working for BJP and secularism is not working for Congress. But let me see. Firstly, of course, I mean, closing comments. No, these are. Well, thank you. I mean, I'm very grateful to our contributors, and I say this from the bottom of my heart. To be able to afford in these times, where all our budgets are strained, including our salaries, our equipment, all of that is crunched. In a time like this, when there's, some of us thought we will not even have a job at this time. To have the luxury to go halfway across the country to Chhattisgarh. For me, it's a study trip. Thanks to you, I got educated in a completely different context, and your money made that possible. So keep that coming if you can. Okay. The other thing I feel, is I am very. I mean, yeah, I am always like an underdog supporter, whether I'm watching a match, whatever. I'm always an underdog supporter, and in this case, I do feel like that the times are changing, because truly secular alternatives are emerging. That's for me a positive thing, and I do not think in our either in the Indian or the South Asian context, truly secular alternatives cannot emerge without taking into account caste, gender, regional identity. And I do believe that some of these parties which have come up in Chhattisgarh need to be focused upon, and it's our job as journalists to focus upon those who do not have access to us, who cannot just call for a press conference and be assured of the fact that the whole jingbang will turn up. We, I think, have demonstrated that we turn up where actually people are not going, and that is really our guiding spirit, which is, if all the journalists are going this side, we try to go and see, hey, who are they not covering? So I'm very excited by some of these new parties. Please do check out my reports that you funded. Yeah, and that's my thing. Thank you so much.
Great. Thank you so much, guys, for tuning in. We're going to wrap this. We have an election live that's going to happen on December 3rd. We're going to be doing the results. 5 independent news organizations are coming together for this. There's The Scroll, there's Wire, there's Caravan, there's News Minute, and there's Newslaundry. All 5 of us are going to come together from 8 a.m. in the morning. Huh?
I said all the usual suspects.
All the usual suspects. So from 8 in the morning, we're going to start rolling, and we're going to do a live show on the election results. Please catch us. You can watch us on any of our YouTube channels. So you have 5 channels to choose from. You can log on to any of those and watch the live stream. Please, please, please do join us. This is an endeavor to provide nice, sound, sane conversation, hopefully, which is informative and fun. So tune in for our election live. And thank you so much for joining us on this Monday night. We shall see you next on December 3rd.
Can we say run from big media now? In chorus. Run from big media.
Yeah. So do join us for the live on December 3rd. I mean, that's where you should be watching election results live. We'll have a lot of voices. We have a lot of anchors and a lot of experts from these 5 organizations. So do catch live. Even if you're insistent on watching TV, do stream YouTube also.
Yes.